Every page we have built has had styles on it, colors, spacing, a bit of JavaScript, and we know exactly where it came from. We put a style tag right inside the component's HTML. That is where it loads from. It works. It is also not how AEM wants you to ship CSS and JavaScript on a real site. Today we do it properly. Look back at what we did in episode 4 and again in episode 5. When a component needed styling, we dropped a style block and sometimes a script tag right inside the component's HTML. It worked. You saw it render. It is also exactly the wrong way to ship CSS and JavaScript, and I said so at the time. Then in episode 7, we opened the page component. Two files, custom header libs.html and custom footer libs.html. I told you ClientLibs would one day plug in there. Today, those two things meet. We take the styles and the script out of a component and we send them to the page the way AEM actually wants us to. Let's build something new and let's start the wrong way on purpose. A component I'll call the callout, a titled box with a message and a button. Static content, no dialog this time. The text is written straight into the component and I'll give it a style tag and a script tag. Right there in the HTML. It will look great and the button will work. The button works, the styling is fine. But open the page source, both tags sit mid-body. The style tag is not in the head. The script tag is not before the body closes. CSS, JavaScript and markup all tangled into one file. That is what the rest of this episode fixes. Now let's create a component called callout component. Right click, create, node, CQ:component, callout. Now inside callout, I am going to create callout.html. Now let's add title and component group. This is my title and this is my component group. Save it. Now for every component, in order to drag and drop in page, either we should have CQ:dialog or CQ:edit config node. So this component going to be a static component. We don't need CQ dialog. So I am going to add edit config node. Copy this, paste it here. Let's add some code here. This is code for our callout component. I am going to share this code in my Substack blog. Now in this code, I have a style tag and CSS inside it. I have a script tag and JS inside it. Let's add this component in our page. Go to sites, create a page, and open. Here I am going to add my callout component. This is how it will look like. Open in view as publish. When I click on helpful, this counter will increase by 1. Every time it is increasing by 1. Now let's move our styles and script to ClientLibs. Here is the thing that replaces style and script tags. A client library, it is a folder, its type is CQ:client-library-folder. Inside it, your CSS and JS folders and two little text files, css.txt and js.txt. These txt files list which files go in and in what order. The folder has one property that matters most, categories. That is the name you will use to pull this client lib onto a page. You never link to the CSS file by its path. You ask for it by category and AEM builds the URL for you. So let's take that style block and that script out of the component and put them in a client lib.
To create client lib, go to your component folder, right click, create node. This time the type going to be CQ client library and name it as clientlib. You can keep any name, click OK, save it. Now inside this folder, create one more folder called CSS, one more folder for JS. You are going to create all your CSS files inside this CSS folder. Right click, create file. Let's name it as styles.css. Save it. And inside JS, create file script.js. Save it. Now, inside cliently folder, you need to create two more files, css.txt, js.txt. In css.txt, you need to put hash base equal to css. Means you are telling your cliently folder that all your CSS files are present inside CSS folder. Save it. Similarly for JS, hash base equal to JS. That means all your JS files are present inside a folder called JS. Save it. Now inside CSS folder you have styles.css. You need to list it in css.txt. Go to css.txt and list your CSS file. You can put n number of CSS files inside your CSS folder. You just have to list them in your css.txt one by one. Similarly, inside JS, I have script.js. Go to js.txt, enter your JS file name, which is script.js. If there are multiple JS file, you have to list below it, like script1.js. Like that, you have to list one by one. For now, I have only script.js, so let me remove it. Now, go to your component, copy the CSS and paste it inside your styles.css. Save it. Similarly, copy your script, go to your script.js, paste it and save it. Now remove these style tags and script tags. Okay, now we have moved our CSS and JS into ClientLib. After creating this folder structure, we need to add one property called categories. This is very important property. Using this only, we will include our CSS and JS files inside our component. Categories, string, and my category name going to be AEM Callout. Save it. Now you have created your ClientLibs. Let's include our ClientLibs in our component. To include ClientLibs, you have to use following code. These lines means you are loading your client library CSS by calling using its category name, that is aeminsider.callout. And for including JS, just copy this and paste it below, and you have to put it as JS. Now it will load your JS at the end of the HTML and CSS at the top of the HTML. If you want to load both CSS and JS both at a time, you can replace the CSS with all. When you say all, it will load both CSS and JS one by one. For now, I am loading only CSS. Now my component is updated. Let's refresh our page and see whether it is working or not. As you can see, my CSS are working. When I click helpful button, the counter is ticking. Let me show you how the CSS and JS are loaded in my page. When I inspect my component, At the top of the component, my CSS file was included using link tag, and my JS is loaded using script tag. Let me open the CSS file in new tab. So this is how it will look like. These are all CSS you have used for callout component. Similarly, let me open my JS. This is the JS file that was added in my component.
AEM is smarter than you might expect. The client-lib code is inside the component, so it renders once per callout. Put a second callout on the page. You might expect a second script tag and a second link tag, but AEM tracks what it has already included and silently drops the duplicate. One link, one script, even with two instances. So the counter still works, one click, one count, no bug there. But open the source. Both tags are sitting in the body, right there mid-page after the component markup. Not in the head, not before the body closes. That is the problem. A style sheet belongs in the head, so the browser has it before it starts painting. Put it in the body, and on a slow connection, the page renders unstyled for a moment, a flash before the styles arrive, and a script sitting mid-body can block everything below it from loading. The fix is the same either way. Stop asking for the client lib inside the component. Ask for it at the page level. CS is in the head, JavaScript before the body closes.
Now add a second callout below the first one. Go to WCM mode disabled and refresh the page and click on helpful. Both are working fine. Now let's check the page source. Search for your callout component. This is your callout component. It has one CSS link and one script tag. For the second callout, there is no CSS and there is no script tag. But there is still a problem. Look at where they are placed. Both are inside the body, right after the component markup. But there is still a problem. Look at where they are placed. Both are inside the body, right after the component markup. The CSS should be in the head. If it loads halfway through a large page, users may briefly see the page without proper styling, especially on a slow connection. The script is also in the body and can block the content that comes after it. So, the correct approach is load styles in the head, load script just before the body closes. The fix is simple. Do not load the client library inside the component, load it once at the page level.
Remember those two files from episode 7. Custom header libs.html renders inside the head tag. Custom footer libs.html renders right before the body closes. That is exactly the split we want. CSS goes in the head, so the page is styled before it pins. JavaScript goes in the footer, so downloading and running it doesn't block the page from showing up. And we add the JavaScript with async equals true, so it loads out of the way. Ask for the client lib in these two files and it loads once for the whole page, no matter how many callouts are on it. The counter goes back to counting one at a time. That is the rule for this episode. CSS in the head, JavaScript before the body closes, loaded once at the page level.
This is our callout component. It has loaded our CSS at the top and JS at the bottom using ClientLibraryFolder. Now we have to move these two parts to page component. Let's go to page. Inside page we have two files, custom header libs and custom footer libs. Custom header libs is for CSS. Open this file and here you have to include your component clientlib. You can include it in two ways. Just copy this line, go to header libs and paste it below it. This is one way. The second way is just copy your category name of clientlib and place it beside AM Insider base. This is another way. AEM Insider Base. This client lib came along with our archetype. We did not create it. It came automatically. I can just place my component category name beside it. Like that, you can load n number of component client libs by placing side by side. Now, for JS file, you have to use custom footer libs. Again here, you can place it here, comma and your category name. That's it. Now, from the component, remove the client lib include. Your component should have only markup. Now, go to your page, refresh it, open page source, search for your component. This is your component. Here the CSS and JS are removed. They will be included at head and at the end of body. Let's go to head section. Here, as you can see, your component CSS was loaded in the head. Similarly, go to bottom. Just before body, you will be able to see your component JS file. Why this is happening? Let's go to our page. In our previous episode, we have discussed about this resource supertype. In page component, there is no page.html. In that case, it will go to resource supertype. Copy this, go to apps, paste the path. Inside apps, this is not available. Then it will search inside libs. Inside libs, there is page and it has page.html. Now, inside page.html, there is one head. Head is including head.html. In head.html, it is trying to load custom header libs.html. First, it will go to your component and check does custom header libs.html file is there or not. If it is not there, again it will come back to your libs folder and it will load custom header libs, but our page component already has custom header libs. That's why it will load this one. Similarly, custom footer libs.
Look at where our callout CSS loading from right now. Open the page source, find the link tag. It points at /apps /mInsider /components /callout/clientlib. The exact place it lives in CRXTEA on the author, that is fine. We are logged in as admin and admin can read /apps, but /apps is private. That is where your code lives. On a real live website, a visitor's request goes to the publish server, and on the publish server, the browser is not allowed to open anything under /apps. Access to the /apps folder is restricted. So the moment this site goes live, that link breaks and the page loads with no styling at all. That is what one setting fixes. Allow proxy set to true. Turn it on for our client lib, and AEM stops handing out the /apps path. Instead, it serves a public copy at a new address, one that starts with /etc.clientlibs. Anyone can open that. Your real file stays private under /apps, same styles, safe public address. So that is the answer. The URL says /etc.clientlibs only after you switch allow proxy on. Until then, it says /apps like ours does right now. Let's switch it on and watch the URL change. And that long hash in the new address, it is just a version stamp. AEM builds it from what is inside the file. Change the CSS, the stamp changes, the URL changes, and browsers grab the new file. Change nothing and the URL stays the same, so browsers keep the copy they already have. That is how a client lib can be cached forever and still update the second you edit it.
Right now, in the page source, the callout component clientlibs points to /apps. Let's see why that is a problem. Our client library is stored under /apps, but on a published site, the /apps path is not publicly accessible. The fix is go to CRXTE, find out your client library, and add a property called allow proxy. Allow proxy, and this is going to be a boolean. and its value going to be true, and save it. Now refresh the page source again. As you can see, now it started with /etc. Earlier it was /apps. The CSS is now being served through the clientlib proxy. Open the URL directly and you will see compiled CSS. The original source is still safe stored under /apps. Only the compiled output is publicly accessible. What about this hash? Let's make some changes to our CSS file. Go here and I am going to change text color to this one. Save it. Now refresh our page. Now the text color is changed to red. Now again refresh our page source. Now as you can see, the hash code has just updated. Earlier the hash code started with 6E5. Now it is 634. Same CSS file but different content means a different hash. The hash is the cache buster. When the file changes, the URL changes. So the browser knows it needs to download new version instead of using old cached copy. Similarly, when I scroll down, the JS also started with etc clientlibs.
Last piece. A client lib can pull in another client lib. There are two ways to do it and they are not the same. Let's prove it on our own callout. I'll make a second little client lib, call it the theme that adds one visible touch, a star, before the callout's title. Then I'll have our callout pull that theme in, first one way, then the other. Dependencies. I give the client lib a property dependencies pointing at the theme. Here is the rule: a dependency always loads first before the theme that depends on it. So if the callout depends on the theme, the browser loads the theme, then the callout. Open the network tab and you see two calls: theme first, callout second. Two separate files in that order. Embed. Now I swap that property for a different one, embed pointing at the same theme. This makes one file, not two. Embed takes the theme CSS and combines it into the callouts file, the themes part on top, the callouts part after it. The star still appears, but the network tab shows a single call, one file, everything inside. So a dependency keeps the two separate and loads the other one first. Embed merges the other one in so the browser makes a single trip. When do you reach for each in a real project? Dependencies are for shared libraries. If your code needs something like jQuery, you put jQuery in its own client lib and depend on it, loaded once, loaded first, and reused by every component that needs it. The browser caches it a single time. Embed is for bundling. It is how you take a pile of small client libs and ship them as one file. That is exactly what our base client lib does. It embeds the grid and all the core component styles into a single request instead of a dozen separate ones.
First, the theme. Let's create new clientlib for that. To create clientlib, create node. This is my type. My clientlib folder name going to be clientlib hyphen callout hyphen theme. Save it. Inside that, create a folder for CSS and then css.txt file. I am not going to put any JS file here, so I am not creating JS folder. Now inside css.txt, add hash base equal to CSS and your CSS file name. Save it. Now inside CSS, create your theme.css file, add some style. These styles will add a star before the title in callout component. Now let's add a category name to theme client lib. Categories, and this is going to be string and its value going to be AEM insider dot callout dot theme. Now, for our callout component clientlibs, I am going to add a property called dependencies. Dependencies, this is going to be a multi-field. So select multi and click add. Here you have to enter callout theme category name. AEM insider.callout.theme. This is our category name. Save it. Now refresh the page. As you can see, a star came just before our title. Now let's go to network tab and try to understand what is happening. Inspect, go to network tab, refresh the page again. As you can see, there is a new request for callout component theme client library. We did not included this theme client library in our custom header libs. Still, it got loaded just before our callout component client lib. This is because of dependencies property. The rule is a dependency always loads before the thing that depends on it. Theme first, callout second, two separate files. Now, same thing, instead of dependency property, I am going to add embed property. Again, this is going to be a multi-field. I am going to add theme client library. Save it and remove dependencies property. Save it. Now, clear the network tab and refresh the page again. As you can see, there is no clientlib theme request call. When I click on callout component clientlib request, in the response, you will be seeing our theme CSS also. The themes part on top, the callouts part after. One file, one request. So dependency will load dependent clientlibs first and then our component clientlib. Embedded will merge all the clientlibs and load in a single network call.
One last thing, and it is the gotcha that trips people up. Dependencies and embed behave differently the moment you chain them. Dependencies are transitive. Say A depends on B and B depends on C. Load A and AEM follows the whole chain, all three end up on the page. C, B and A. Embed is not. Say A embed B and B embed C. Load A and you get only B and A combined into one file. C is left out. Embed pulls in only what you list directly. So depend and the whole chain comes along. Embed and you get exactly what you named, nothing further down. Let's put the whole path in one line. You write your CSS and JavaScript in a ClientLib folder and you give it a category. The page component asks for that category, CSS in the header, JavaScript in the footer, so it loads once in the right place. Allow proxy serves the compiled file from /etc.clientlibs. The hash on the file name versions 8, so it caches forever and updates the moment you change it. And if your client lib needs another one, you either depend on it or embed it. That is ClientLibs. Every styled AEM page you will ever see works exactly this way. That is ClientLibs. Styles and scripts out of your components onto the page the right way, one link in the head, one script before the body closes, versioned and cached and served through the proxy. If this helped, subscribe. The whole series builds on itself. The written version with every snippet is on the Substack, and drop a comment. I read all of them. Next episode, the language itself. Every component file we have written ends in .html, but it is not plain HTML. It is HTL, AEM's template language, the one you'll also hear called Sightly. Data sly use, data sly list, data sly test, the $ expressions, and the contexts that keep your markup safe. We have used all of it in every single episode and never once stopped to learn it. Next time we do. That is next. This is AEM Insider. Straight talk on AEM